Welcome to the Retirement Planning Show, your source for financial strategies to help you retire with confidence. Featuring Chip Coughlin of Retirement Income Analysts in Syracuse, New York. Chip is a registered representative, and securities are offered through LPL Financial, member of FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Stratus Wealth Partners, Ltd. Retirement Income Analysts and Stratus Wealth Partners are separate entities from LPL Financial. And now, here are your co-hosts, Matt Halloran and Chip Coughlin.
Hello and welcome again. Today we're going to be talking about the top 7 retirement roadblocks with Chip Coughlin. These are different things that you want to make sure that you address so that you can actually retire when you want. Chip, how are you doing today?
Hey, it's a great day.
It is a great day. Well, let's talk about these retirement roadblocks because I'm assuming that you come up against these very, very often.
We do. Everybody we talk to has a different situation, but many times there's some commonality there, and it's these roadblocks that are getting in the way of them really planning for and executing a good retirement.
So are these in order as a priority, or is this just a generalized list? What do we have here?
Well, we just put these together kind of as a generalized list.
Okay.
I think some are more important than others, but it's a pretty good list. And we'll go through this because we ask people the question, will they ease into retirement with plenty of resources, or will they be punching a clock well after they expected to be out of the workforce? And depending how they plan really determines the outcome to that answer.
Well, and planning is number one. And you and I have talked about this on podcasts previously. Planning is a big issue here. So let's talk about that one.
Well, as the old saying goes, if you don't know where you're going, how will you know when you get there? And that's so true for retirement. So we want our clients to take a few minutes and think about their retirement goals and whether they're really on track to achieve them. And, it's like blindly contributing to a 401k is not enough. You really have to use a retirement calculator and really figure out where you're going. And we tell our clients the planning is the key. Mm-hmm. And it's not a fun game, I'll tell you, because it's a lot more fun to plan a vacation because of the emotional attachment, the excitement, and so on, than it is to plan your retirement. But I got to think you're going to be retired a lot longer than you're going to be on vacation. So a little bit of planning goes a long way. And the time to start is now. And everybody says, what do you mean now? And that leads into the second point. But the time to start is now. If you haven't done it up till now, shake it off and start doing it now. Some planning is better than no planning as you get closer to retirement. But I'm speaking today to those people out there that, number one, could be very young. And I tell them, begin with the end in mind. Get ready for retirement. Start while you're young. A little bit of money over a long period of time can give you an explosion of value. But if you start late, just get started. You got to have something.
Well, and that's number 2, right? But before we get to number 2, which is starting too late, the first one here, you actually have calculators on your website, correct, that the general public can use?
We do.
Okay.
If people go to our website, www.retirewithria.com, go into the calculators. They're very easy to use. You can run projections. You can run scenarios. You can check your Social Security. There's a lot of different things you can do to help you plan for that retirement and start putting the pieces together. And it is a projection, okay, because you can use different interest rate assumptions and see how it looks. But if you use a reasonable assumption and you're saving a reasonable amount of money in your 401ks and 403bs and IRAs, it will be meaningful. And it's something you got to check in every once in a while. Because let's take it down to the really base level. Everybody needs a budget. You got to live on a budget. And part of the budget is what you're saving towards retirement. It's putting money away for the future so that you can live on, because people may live in retirement almost as long as they worked.
Right.
With advances in medicine, and we'll talk about that as well.
Well, let's talk about savings. So you have talked about this again. These are all things that you have distilled now into a list that we've talked about in other podcasts. There's some interesting statistics on if you save earlier rather than later. So let's dive into that.
No question about it. They did a study by JP Morgan Asset Management, and they compared investors contributing $5,000 a year towards their retirement. The difference, though, is one started at 25 and the other started at 35. And the later saver accumulated just over 602,000, the person that started at 35. But the person that started at 25 years old had 1.1 million. That's almost twice as much money with an extra 10 years. And it really is the magic of compound interest over time. So if you're young, really get on the bandwagon with this. As I said, a little bit of money over a long period of time gives you an explosion of value. And compound interest has been called the strongest force in nature. So get in, stay in, and reinvest along the way.
Now, you talked about having a budget. And one of the things about having a budget is making sure that, as you just said, that saving is very, very important. I've heard people say save your or pay yourself first. What does that mean exactly?
Okay, that's a great point. And I was just on TV with this point. Pay yourself first. When a client comes in to see me, many times I ask them who they work for. And they'll tell me they work for the hospital or they work for the utility company here or something like that. And I say, thank you very much. And I ask it to them again. Who do you work for? And they eventually come around to realize that they work for themselves and they work for their family. I didn't ask where they work. I asked who they work for. They work for their families. So it's very, very important, obviously, to have a budget and to get going. But when we talk about saving, we tell our clients they should save or invest about 15% of their income. That won't make them rich. It'll just make them economically successful. We read a study recently, and it talked about the spenders and the savers. When you pay yourself first, before you pay your mortgage, before you pay your utility bill, before you pay your car payment or your car lease, set aside a certain amount of your income that is for you for retirement. So paying yourself first. And then secondly, pay all those other vendors that are involved in your life. It could be, your monthly credit card bill. It could be your mortgage or rent. It could be a car payment and things like that. But make it a priority to pay yourself first because who you work for is you and your family. And what they found in the study that I recently looked at was the people that save first, pay themselves first, if you will, and spend whatever's left versus the people that spend everything and hope to save at the end of the month. The spenders work for the savers. The savers are the people that really built America. So are you as good a spender as you are a saver or vice versa? I'm hoping that you'll be a good saver so that you've earned the right to spend everything else after you've paid yourself first.
Now, we save a whole bunch, and let's say we're doing what you said, which is, paying myself first and saving at least 15%. But number 4 kind of throws a hitch in that get along, doesn't it?
Okay. Generally, it's best to invest for the long run with a balanced portfolio, perhaps tilted toward higher risk and growth investments in the early years, and towards lower risk as retirement approaches. You can really harm your retirement funds by either being too aggressive or too passive or not trying to maximize your funds by over trading while looking for bargains. So we tell our clients where they invest and when they invest makes a big difference. Where they invest, let's pick good funds. Let's pick a good allocation that's got the appropriate timeline to it and the appropriate amount of risk for the person, because it's never a one-size-fits-all. So where they invest is very important, and when they invest, and we kind of covered that earlier tonight, because when to invest is as early as possible. Mm-hmm. So where you invest and when you invest makes a big difference. We don't control the markets, but time mitigates risk. So if your time horizon looking at retirement is 5+ years off, then you can take some risk in your portfolio. Let's face it, there's no fixed return that keeps pace with inflation over time. So you need real returns in excess of inflation. Now, inflation's pretty low right now, 2 to 3%, but you need real returns in excess of inflation to make progress towards these retirement goals. And if you've got time and you invest properly, you can achieve the retirement goal that you set out with. And I think it's very important to review that on an ongoing basis, and that's what we do with our clients, because we try to make their investment mix run parallel to their views on risk and their time horizon.
Debt is a big issue, right? It's something that we all deal with, and I know you deal with when you talk about budgeting, but that's number 5, which is too much debt. Let's break that down.
Okay. An increase in cash and assets doesn't help if it corresponds to an increase in debt. America's collective debt has toppled right now over $12 trillion, and it's triggered in part by greater mortgage debt as a function of the housing boom. But you have to resist the urge to take on larger debt loads just because you now have a salary to afford that. So we tell everybody in very simple terms, We need to have your lifestyle line well below your income line. Okay, I'll say that again. Lifestyle line, that's the cost that you live with. It's the cost of goods and services that allow you to live like you live. That line, or on a graph, has to be under their income line. We see so many people today where both lines are on top of each other. So whatever they make is going out the door to pay for expenses. The difference between those two lines is the ability for you to save or invest for the future. So too much debt can be very detrimental because you're paying interest, and you're paying interest to someone else. And we had a client come in, and she had credit card debt that was kind of astounding. And we broke it down. She had some 0% credit card debt, but she also had some 9%, some 12%, and some 14.5% credit card debts. And I said, wouldn't you and I like to own the bank that's billing you 14.5%? Her eyes lit up. She was excited. And I said, well, someone owns that bank and you're paying it to them. So we had to create a plan to reduce her debts as fast as possible. Because when you retire, you want to walk off into the sunset with as little debt as possible, preferably no debt, so that your monthly income, any part of that monthly income, is not going towards servicing that debt. You want to be debt-free. And I tell everybody, being debt-free is being bulletproof, because you're not paying interest to anyone. Mm-hmm. Okay, you're collecting interest, you're not paying it. And there's a big difference there.
Absolutely. So let's say I've been a diligent saver. I paid myself first and I've taken down my debt. One of the concerns that I know a lot of people have getting into retirement has to do with their health, which is number 6.
Exactly. Health problems are a double-edged sword when it comes to retirement planning. Life expectancies today are growing. People that are in their 80s can hope to live till their 90s, and so on and so forth. Good eating, good sleeping habits, good exercise habits, they go a long way toward keeping you out of your doctor's office, and out of the hospital. So preventive care is very, very important. We always say it's better to prepare than to repair. And so we want people to be as healthy as they possibly can. But there's a lot of variables when it comes to your health. And I've read extensively on that because I want to be as healthy as I can be, because I've got 4 kids, the youngest being 16 years old. So I want to be around for a while so I can impart on my young son correct values. So it's very important for me to stay healthy. So eating right, exercising, and things like that. But if you get thrown a curveball, we tell our clients they got to have good health insurance as they get into retirement. We want them to look at long-term care insurance and see if that is a viable option for them, where we can transfer the risk of the cost of long-term assisted care to an insurance company for a premium. And based on their assets, it may be a small cost based on their overall assets. If we could use 2% of their assets to pay for long-term care and protect all of their assets, that's a good trade-off. But again, it's having a good budget, having good health care, having good health habits. They all go into the equation of having a good retirement.
Well, now we're already at number 7. So if you don't mind, would recapping the first 6, and then let's dive in deeply to number 7, because it really is a synopsis of everything that you've said up until this point.
Sure. Well, number 1 is lack of planning. Don't wait till you're 65 years old to start planning retirement at 67. You got to get into it and get it done. Number 2 is starting too late. Again, don't put it off, because it costs a lot more to save for retirement the shorter the period of time you're trying to make up for. Number 3, not making retirement savings a priority. I know, and everybody has unlimited needs and wants, but we ask our clients, and I ask this of my children as well, is it a need or is it a want? I'd want a new boat, but I don't need a new boat, is the analogy that I use many times. So making retirement a priority is key. Number 4 is poor investment strategy. Your investment strategy has to be parallel to the goal you're trying to achieve. And if it's not, you're either taking too much risk, and in today's economy, that could be very detrimental if the economy takes a dive, or if you're not taking enough risk over time, you won't have picked up the return that's necessary to achieve your goals. Number 5 is too much debt. We're worried about people that have a lot of debt, and we try to get them into a debt reduction mode. I will tell you psychologically, when we put a debt reduction plan in front of a client and they start doing it and they start believing it, it's almost like an avalanche. It becomes part of their being. And every month they're saying, hey, I can economize here. I can save over here. I don't need the new car. I'm going to keep the old car. I'm going to put that increase that I would have paid towards the debt. And they really get supercharged to pay that debt off. And it's great to see it. It's just great to see. Number 6 is poor health. Poor health can be a curveball. So plan accordingly. You can't live crazy and not exercise and expect to breeze through a long and beautiful retirement. You can't do that. So number 7 is expectation versus budgets. Do you want to buy a second home in a resort area? Do you want to retire to Paris? Do you want to travel the world crossing things off your bucket list? If so, you need to estimate the cost realistically and compare them to your savings plan. It's great to have all these dreams, but we have to make them fit within the budget. Don't forget to take into account inflation, because over time your purchasing power will be eroded by inflation. And I teach a retirement class, and we spend a good amount of the class looking at the inflation factors, how it affects goods and services that you will need to live on in retirement. And it's pretty dramatic. If people don't plan for inflation, inflation has a plan for you. And the plan is struggle. Because if you're going to retire on $5,000 a month, move that out 10 years. That $5,000 will now have the purchasing power of $2,500. So how do you cut corners there? What are you going to skimp on there? So I tell my clients, you've worked hard all your life. You've earned a comfortable and satisfying retirement without financial worries if you pay attention. And we try to get the clients to avoid the roadblocks so that they can have a smooth ride into the retirement sector. And I'll tell you, when they come into the office and they say, can I retire? And I run a proposal and I said, it looks like you can. How do you feel? Boy, the look on their face is just dramatic. It is just exceptional. And it's great for me to see that because I've helped them achieve that retirement of their dreams. It's very rewarding for me, but boy, are they excited. And, the clients that do retire and start living the dream retirement, they've made those plans. They made them a long time ago. And they have a list, and they have a reason to get up in the morning and get out of bed, and they have things to do, and a circle of friends, a social circle, if you will. They have a lot going on, and it's a meaningful retirement, and that's what everybody wants to have. So if you can avoid the roadblocks, that'll get you there.
That's fantastic, Chip. And with that was 7 top retirement roadblocks and making sure that you don't let these issues keep you from getting the retirement you want with Chip Coughlin. Chip, thanks for your time today.
Very good, Matt.
Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Stratos Wealth Partners, a registered investment advisor. Stratos Wealth Partners and Retirement Income Analysts LLC are separate entities from LPL Financial. Content in this material is for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly.